all of you to this wonderful event. And now you can hear me. We have a couple of events this afternoon that feature alumni of Barnard College, and Jeanine Tesori is one of them. Her master class will be followed by a master class given by Sheila Nevins, who is also a Barnard alum. And all of you who are alums in the audience are invited to an alumni reception, which will be on the second floor. Actually, let me check where that will be. I'll let you know, because I'm not remembering. Sarah, can you check for me where the alumni reception is? Perfect. So it is my great pleasure to introduce to you Jeanine Tesori. But I have to do one thing first, and that is my job throughout the weekend, which is to thank all of the wonderful people who help bring the festival to you, who make this possible. In the slides before the show, you saw a long list of our sponsors, our members of our honorary host committee, people who are friends of the festival, who donate all that popcorn and candy and things that you get to munch on, Voss Water, who brings us the water, all of these people who really make the festival possible. Most importantly, I want to thank the Artemis Rising Foundation, Regina K. Scully, who's their CEO, who has really stepped up big time, became the founding sponsor of the festival, and frankly, who helps us in innumerable ways and makes this all possible. So I want to specifically thank her. Just say one more thank you, which is to all of you, because the festival is not a festival unless there's an audience. And we are thrilled this year to have our audience really be energetic, enthusiastic, inspired. I can't believe how many people have been on campus already. And so we hope that you will not only come to this masterclass and others today, but will see some films and enjoy yourself considerably. At 5 o'clock, just so you know, we are giving an Athena Film Festival award to Paul Feig, who's the first leading man. And Kate McKinnon from Saturday Night Live will be joining him in a conversation in the event oval. And tonight we have the showing of Suffragette, which is also getting an ensemble award to join Jeanine, who received an Athena Film Festival award last night. So we're thrilled to have those upcoming events and a full day of movies and classes tomorrow. So let me now introduce a woman who needs no introduction. Jeanine Tesori holds the most Tony Award nominations for composition of any female composer. She is also probably the only one, right? That's great. She had 2 shows running concurrently on Broadway, Thoroughly Modern Millie and Caroline or Change. She is the composer behind Fun Home, which is on Broadway now, and made quite a splash, winning the Tony for Best Original Score for that musical. But most importantly, there's 2 other things you need to know about Jeanine, which is her expertise goes beyond just Broadway musicals. She has written operas, music for films, Nights in Rodanthe, Every Day, You're Not You, among her credits in the film world. She was also the creative director of A Broader Way, which is an immersive arts program in the Berkshires for girls. The founding artistic director of Encore's Off Center at New York City Center. And if that wasn't enough, lectures in music at Yale. So we are thrilled to have her join us. And I'm going to turn it over to her. Jeanine. Oh, wait. I forgot I'm going to introduce a reel of Jeanine's work. So do you want to do the intro of that?
I know. I can't stop watching this no matter what. I think for a second I thought that was you guys. I was like, oh, that's so meta. us watching. So I'm hoping that won't run all the way through because I will weep. But I do want to show you, we were going to show you something else that was really too long. And because, Oh, no, that was the thing that I think was an hour and a half. So this is when we were nominated, when Fun Home was nominated for Best Musical, there's always this thing that you do on the Tony Awards where you have to decide what you're going to play for the 3 minutes and 40 seconds, and if you go over one, a producer comes and does something to you. And I said to them with Lisa Krohn, we're doing Ring of Keys, which is the little girl's solo. We're not going to do anything splashy. That's not who we are. We're not going to. It's not about competing on that level, but our fullest expression of that musical comes with this girl and her singing this song. So I just wanted to show that instead, because it sort of encapsulates what we're going to talk about today. If we could run that, please.
In this panel, me and my dad in a diner.
Where's Betty?
She went home. Lorna's on now.
Caption, my dad and I both grew up in the same small Pennsylvania town.
Oh.
And I didn't know it, but both of us were gay.
Where's your beret?
And we were exactly alike.
Put it back in. Keeps the hair out of your eyes.
So what a crew cut.
And we were nothing alike.
Do not take it out again.
Which was it, Dad?
Get Lorna. Need coffee.
You didn't notice her at first, Dad, but I did. I saw her the minute she walked in. I'd never seen a woman who looked like her. It was like I was a traveler in a foreign country who runs into someone from home. Someone they've never met before, but somehow just recognizes.
Someone just came in the door, like no one I ever saw before. I feel. I don't know where you came from. I wish I did. I feel so dumb. I feel your swagger and your bearing and the just right clothes you're wearing, your short hair and your dungarees and your lace-up boots and your keys. Oh, your ring of keys. I thought it was supposed to be wrong, but you seem okay with being strong. I want. You're so. It's probably conceited to say, but I think we're alike in a certain way. Your swagger and your bearing and the just right clothes you're wearing, your short hair and your dungarees and your lace-up boots and your keys. Oh, your ring of keys. Do you feel my heart saying hi in this whole luncheonette? Why am I the only one who sees you're beautiful? No, I mean handsome. Your swagger and your bearing and the just right clothes you're wearing, your short hair and your dungarees and your lace-up boots and your keys. Oh, your ring of keys. I know you. I know you. I know you.
So that song, I think, represents a lot of, for me, what I think I'm trying to do in the, I don't know if you'd call it a business. Work for me and music is the, like Charles Ives, it's the unanswered question. So there's just the asking of the question constantly, and I think the questions perhaps get smarter and deeper. When they called this a masterclass, I thought, well, we'll sort of do something for an hour and find out things together for an hour, because in a setting like this, most of it we can talk about, which would involve you and what you are working on and how you are working, which really interests me. So if we could start there, I would love to talk about music or storytelling, activism, which to me is much related to how you write for dramatic characters. After all, we're dramatic characters if we're activating something and making something happen, and we're up a tree and we're trying to knock ourselves down and get something accomplished. I think it's much the same, that life is long-form composition. So they're tied together. The group of our program, A Broader Way, we take 60 girls from East Harlem, and we do an immersive, they hate that word, but that's what we would call it. They end up hating me often at the end of it, and I sort of, sometimes hate them right back, but ultimately I love them deeply. Thank you. I really meant that as a joke. I don't hate them. I hate them. And we talk about the art of living, which is really, when we talk about composition, and when I teach, a lot of the music vernacular, a lot of the nomenclature is distancing. And so a lot of people feel very shy about, if I were to go and perform an appendectomy. Wait, I'm doing this afternoon. I'm performing a surgery. No, I'm not. I'm not performing surgery. It's just a hobby. Really? Oh, my God. But, that there's distancing in the legalese and contracts, the way that we do insurance forms. It's meant for something not to happen. Anytime you're making out a claim, I always thought, why is this so fucking hard? Why is it so difficult? And I thought, because they don't really want me to do it. They don't really want that to happen. And so any kind of distance, legal distance, storytelling distance for me is about breaking down those walls and getting there together. I don't care what you call something musically, as long as you name it and you call it something, and you grapple with it. And so when we're dealing in the room with a lot of smart people, I think the goal is to crack open with a rib spreader, crack open your soul and your hearts to the making of the art, as opposed to trying to be smart about it. Everybody is smart. Everybody has talent. The question is, how can you be authentic and bring something into the room? Because the world pushes against us to be our authentic selves and to come in. This is who I am, this is how I work, especially with women. They do not encourage our girls to step forward, which Cheryl would say lean in. And it's not just about the leaning in, but the speaking up to represent the interiority of who we are. And that continues. It really continues. In a place where we are surrounded by our brothers, and I love them, we're different. We're socialized differently. And I think the movement is about how we can speak, say no, and be very, very specific about what it is that we want and we need. Because if we can do that in life, we can do it in the art. It is like that Buddhist saying of how you do one thing is how you do all things. If you can do that, you can practice it. And there's the only other thing before we start the Q&A, which I often say when I teach, is all of these things take practice. I wouldn't throw you at the piano. Well, I might do it in the next hour, so get ready. But if I throw you at the piano and ask you to play a piece, you would say, what would be your first response? Besides terror, besides abject terror, what would you say? What? What do you want to hear? Or if you don't play, Michelle, what would you say? Learn and practice. And often those things that we say, we don't really find ourselves doing. The way that we accomplish things is that 10,000 hours. That applies to this as well. The way that we collaborate and get what we want in the room. I've been in all of these rooms. The difference for me when I see people not moving ahead, and they should because they're talented, is the inability to say what they need and what they want. It's not about being aggressive or being shy for me. It's about being clear. The clarity of saying a no is a no, a decision is a decision, and let me tell you why. Let me articulate it. So let me keep excavating at that thing, that abstract thing that you sometimes can't talk about. And then there's that point where you can just say, can you just please try it just because? Just because. because that is my impulse. That's the artistic impulse. So if someone has a question, lead us off. Christina, you want to start?
I guess, this is so broad, but do you find with so few women in such kind of more commercial or higher up positions in theater that...
Sure. I have to hold it.
with so few women in...
This is Barnard. This full on. You know, we have people holding the mic. We don't fuck around here.
You're right,
We just
you're
don't.
You're right. So do you find with so few women in theater either like it to be a source of discouragement or encouragement with how imbalanced it is in terms of female composers, female directors, and people behind the scenes kind of leading the way for the next generation?
You know, there was a point. Shayna Taub, who's a dear friend. If anybody doesn't know her, she's just like on the brink of. She's going to have a huge career. She's already going to have it. Her score is being played at Old Hats at Signature, right? She's amazing, and she's composing the score to the Delacorte, the Public Works thing. Shayna has met with me over she calls it mentoring, but I just call it listening and nodding. Which is, if I had a boutique, it would be called listening and nodding. It's like, How does that music make you feel? You know, that kind of thing. And so I decided a while ago, even though I wasn't seeing women in music, I was seeing enough of them that I knew what I wanted. I always talk about Linda Twine, who is a hero of mine, but also people like Sheila Nevins and the way that I've known about Sheila for a really long time because of the way that she leads. And she's strong about it. She has strong ideas. But why not? Why wouldn't we? And I'm not as interested in naming the things that happen. I'm interested in activating and responding to the way it is so that it can change. Because, you know, we have kids and we have lives and the two, you know, the one train doesn't go up to 116th now. You have to get on the goddamn shuttle bus. It's hard to live here. So I can't go backwards. I know, isn't that so annoying? I was like, really? You can't? I can't? Okay, cab. I can't spend that much time sort of circulating the constant what it has been. So I'm mentoring 4 women, and by mentoring I mean I create a deadline for them. One is Ayadeli Casal, who is a Puerto Rican African American tap dancer who is writing her first, I guess you call a long-form composition, and she interests me because the way that her brain thinks is percussive. You know, she worked with Savion Glover, another great storyteller. So it's being handed down. Honey Coles, Savion Glover, George Wolfe, Ayadeli Casal, and then we're going to work together. We're working together to create deadlines because nothing happens to me without that deadline. Shayna Taub, Masi Asari, who is a wonderful composer who actually works here in fundraising, and the Broadway girls and getting them into film, hooking them into the women I know. There are a big group of women producing on Broadway and off Broadway, and getting them together and trying to find all the ways, the internship program at City Center, creating work so that for someone like Liz Swados, who is really underappreciated, and it makes me, you know, at her memorial where Sheila spoke so beautifully, I had this incredible response. I found myself getting more and more Sicilian. I just thought, oh, it's that. Oh, it's marinara sneaking out of my ear. Oh, that's weird. I felt really angry that we had not perpetuated and stood by and curated the work of Liz Swados, someone who died at, I think she was 64, and should have had a retrospective a long time ago. We are doing Runaways. Please come see it at City Center. There are really, really cheap tickets there. And she was a fierce woman. You know, she was writing for Andre Servan when she was 19. Runaways was 78. She was the head of just in a beautiful experimental theater. And she wrote hundreds of works, and people know very few of them. So I think if we can find ways to program things that we have a response to and constantly activate it, for me, it upstages the other bemoaning, which has to happen. All of those things, like those numbers, which I'm like a dog watching CNN. I just can't look away from it. And you think, really? 1% of women score movies. 1%. Now, I was part of that 1%, and I gave up. I just didn't like it. I'll do it every now and then, but You know, when you have someone like Hans Zimmer who has it down and has that thing rolling out with those, and they're all really talented, I think, I'm going to put it elsewhere. You know, I can't keep up with the gear. It's not my fullest expression, but I'm sure that there are some women out there for whom it would be. So how do we make that, how do we set them up so that they can set up their own, that own wheel of productivity? That's the question. How do we pull younger women along and set them up so that they can succeed? And a lot of that is structure and mechanics. You can't do it without that. The deadline, the structure, the infrastructure, all of those things. And I will say that I've had a great time in the industry. I've only had one story really long time ago, and a contractor said, I had asked what we were going to be paid as a pianist. I mean, I was so young. And he said, oh, like what a New York prostitute makes, $50 an hour. And I remember thinking, I mean, that's how long ago it was, is that it used to be $50 an hour. And I remember thinking, $50 an hour, that's a lot of money. And I thought, oh, well, wait a minute. So I'm like, you're telling me it's like hooking? You're telling me that you don't even know what you said? And I was 24, or some tender age. And I went home, and this guy was super, super scary. And I stayed up all night, and in the morning I called him, and I said, I've stayed up all night, and because I'm so afraid to end my career right here. But I can't be spoken to like that. I won't be spoken to like that. And I am really afraid that you will blackball me. But so be it. I mean, I have other skills. I really don't. But I can't do it. And he, to his great credit, he said, I've been talking pig for so long that I didn't even know what I said until you put it back on me. It will never happen again. And if I ever slip, you call me on it, because that's the only way. And I mean, and I was shaking because I really thought, I was a pianist. I was absolutely dependent. I wasn't writing, doing any of that stuff. And it was a defining moment for me. And one other very famous composer who grabbed my boobs. And I was like, what are you doing? That's so awkward and weird, and you're so old. Why would you do that? And then the next day, man, I just dumped his scores in, and I just said, it's not going to be, I don't know what movie you're in, but it's not my movie, bitch. So those two actions, and I knew that the idea behind them and the stakes behind them, when I left the city for a year, because I had bottomed out on life and thought, I have to use my time well, because someday I'm going to run out of it. And we pretend in this culture that death is over there. But there's this beautiful book called When Breath Becomes Air. If you haven't read it, it's extraordinary. And Atul, I think his name is Gawande, Atul Gawande? He writes about palliative care and the way that we look at time. And that's a composition. A composition, theater occurs over time and space. And so does life. They're just not that different. And yet what we look at it and we go on this wheel, which I do too, is in the fear of the mystery, we don't use the time well because we're pretending it's over there. So, all of these things come into play when I'm looking at how I'm going to spend my time. And I think because my husband had a stroke when my daughter was 10, the fragility of life was right there for me. And it became what I would call the horrible lesson of, it's right here. It's like you're just like Mick Jagger would say, it's right there. You're just a kiss away. We're this far away. And because I studied science here and biology before I switched to music, and when you understand the way that the body works and life works, it's similar and just as fragile. That was such a long-ass answer, but thank you. Anybody else? Yeah. I know. You get a car, and you get a car.
Thank you. You talked about questions and deeper questions. Would you care to share what you're working on now? I'm very interested in what you're working on now creatively and what your process is and whether it's changed.
It's definitely it definitely has changed because I've gotten. I would say, did anybody hear did you hear the Helen Mirren quote about when she's saying, at 7 years old, when I look back on my younger self, my advice to myself is to tell myself to tell other people to fuck off more often. And I just love that quote. I love her. I think my process is more focused in a way because I'm trying to do a lot. The teaching has become a very big deal for me because as I teach, I learn, and I put composition in quotation marks because I think it's a series of questions, sort of like the Socratic method of how you use math, which is the base of, this, but does anybody know why that we all sing that? We all sing that. Have you ever thought, if you know the answer, I know you know. Does anybody know why we sing that? This is what we call a pregnant pause. Every child, unless there's something happening, and Bernstein explains this so beautifully in the Norton lectures that he gave at Harvard, and it's on tape, and if you're a music student, go watch it. It's astonishing. It's based on an overtone series where you climb up. As you have the overtones, you actually climb up and hear those pitches. And then it doesn't get minor until very far up the scale, which is a sort of reduction of what the beauty is of that series. So when we think about major chords, and that's why you sing this, because everybody is born inside what a lot of people would call the tuning of the world. You have it. And when people say, "Oh, I don't write music," I was like, "Well, you are music. You were born into it. The world is born into a specific tuning, the golden ratio. It's all in the physics and the science of it. The mystery, the spiritual, is what the variable is. But the reason if you had words for what that chord is, just throw them out. What does that chord sound like? Just shout them out. Happy. What was that? Straight. What about this one? Success! Yes. Anytime a metric card goes through, I think. How about this? What does that sound like? Intensity. That's so I dropped my phone in the gutter. What does that sound like? Right. The reason that is because the minor is far away from home. We are tonal beings. I love atonal music. I love atonal music because those composers said, "Hey, fuck off. I'm not going to make the tonal sound." I don't think they said it like that. Oh my God. I just remember this is live streaming, and my mom, I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. She's like, "I paid for Barnard and Columbia, and this is how you talk, like an accountant." Oh, now I've offended accountants. I'm so sorry. Anyway, it's so far away, it's so foreign. So when you think of classical stories like the Odyssey, Odysseus is like, I'm going. Uh-oh, siren. That's an obstacle. Uh-oh, Cyclops. That's an optical challenge. Oh, going. He's going home to Penelope, right? That's the tonic. That's the tonal pole. You all have a pole. We have our ancestral poles, but music has a pole. It has a tonic, a tonal pole. Going back, right? Is question ba 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 ba. Now, how do you feel? What are you dying for? Definition. End it. Right. So if anybody in any music class plays this, I have to go as I'm leaving. I have to go like this, and then I can leave. I'm like, oh my God. That was a suspension I couldn't deal with. But there's a pole. That is theory and harmony. It's in life. There is no difference to it. That's what I deal with. We in theater, we're creating tension and release all the time, just in life. The Metro car goes through, the Metro car doesn't go through. The shuttle bus, the way that you look at climate change, oh my God, all of these things, that's all tension. And then the release. Tension. Right, so it's all built on these things that ebb and flow in life. It's no different. So when I'm looking at time and structure, I feel at 54 now, I feel all my teachers coming together. I feel it just now starting to integrate. And I think that's why Fun Home for me was an important, the ambition of Fun Home and the craft for me finally met. And that's how I'm looking at the next projects. I think, okay, my craft is getting better. After studying it for so long, even though I switched here, I studied biology here and then switched when I was 19 to music. And when I ran into someone from high school, when I was just graduating, and they said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm a conductor." And they said, "That's amazing. Which train line?" I was like, "Oh, no, this, not choo-choo, but this one." And they're like, "Oh, really? Because do you do music?" Because in high school, I didn't do any music. I was on sports, which is another great thing, because musical theater and a lot of things, it's just field hockey in a different field. Same sticks. You're all working forward. You all have positions. You can't do it alone. You can try, but you will die. You get all of those, just like, hand me the ball, you can't do it. So those group efforts. I'm working on an opera based on Grounded, do you know, George Brandt's play? I'm really interested in, this will really surprise my mother too, I'm very interested in drone warfare, and nothing says musical theater opera like drone warfare. The way that a frequent collaborator of mine, Tony Kushner, is a really dear friend, and I learned so much from him. We have these long breakfasts, and he just talks and talks, and then I nod and nod. And he once said, there really just isn't any privacy left. And I didn't understand what he meant until I really began to study the way that we observe each other. And that play there's a reason it's being done all over the world. And that would actually be a great part. I would love to see you in that part. It's a woman who's a fighter pilot, and she gets grounded because she gets pregnant, and that she learns the way that we are constantly observed in life, right here. They're filming me doing something, so in my third eye, I'm thinking of my mother in Port Washington, Long Island, watching me do this, so we're not really private, right? When you're in a dressing room, are you alone? Well, not really. Now when you're at a red light, there's someone taking your picture. And at any time, during Runaways, one of the actors said, "I don't want my picture taken in these ways." And I said, I can't control anything about imagery anymore. Because we all have the ability to self-publish and observe and be very, very formal about it now. There are very few times, even though I love GPS. Do you guys remember when you used to, well, you're all young, you remember when you used to drive in LA and use the Edwards? Remember the Edwards thing? And I'd be driving straight into a Mack truck. I'd be like, "Where is La Cienega?" I don't know. And I think, oh my God, this book, and it's this big, book. And now you're like, "Where's La Cienega?" Go 500 feet. And so it's great and it's not great. It's really not great because you don't get lost and you can't find your way out. There's no more waiting. I was a big lover of the card catalog because as you were flipping through, all these things would fire in your brain. And I was behind a kid at a play, and the father leaned forward and said, What do you think's happening? And he said, "Oh, I know, the play is loading." And I thought, oh, that's bad. He thinks the play is loading. He thinks that circle is going around. And this generation that we're teaching doesn't understand the difference between the electronics of software preparing and human beings on the other side, and what it takes. It was actually really funny though, and then when I really thought about it, that's one piece. I'm also doing a musical that's, I can't say exactly what it is, but it does deal with, it's a very funny piece, but it deals with life at the end. I'm really interested in it. I've lost so many, I guess because I'm the generation, and I've lost so many friends. I lost a lot of friends in the 90s. David Rakoff, who I went to school with here, died 3 years ago. My mentor passed away. All the people who have parented me, a lot of them have passed away. And being with them and holding their hands as they take their last breath, I thought it would be so solemn and sad, but it's a spiritual adventure. It's really incredible. It's not that it's not frightening, and it's not that doesn't have, it's visceral, I couldn't believe it, but there is something unbelievably similar about the way that people, whatever portal they go through. So that really interests me a lot. And I'm writing a musical movie based on a Russian folktale. So that, waiting for all of those things. But mostly I'm trying to deal with my incredible 18-year-old daughter, who I love very much, as she prepares to go to college next year. And that is an opera. That is a really big opera, what our kids go through to go to school. I thought kindergarten was I had said to my then husband there, I said, we're in a play, and we're characters in a play in getting our New York City child into kindergarten. And we're just like, we're going to have to give ourselves the scripts. We're going to have a good time doing this. We cannot go the opposite way. So those are all the things I'm working on. Oh my God, I talk too much. Anybody else? Yes.
So you said before that in theater it's sort of like sports and that one person can't really do it alone. I know from your past work you typically work with a lyricist, with a book writer. Can you speak to the experience of collaborating?
Did everybody hear the question? It's about the experience of collaborating. I really, everything is a collaboration. The Constitution, the democracy is the ultimate collaboration. But in this, a musical, there's a reason why there was a study of musicals as a scientific study of collaboration. And Sondheim, in both volumes of his books, he describes it really well. It's the need to take a stand for yourself as strongly as you take the stand for another's idea. What I would call radical empathy. And until you can really, really do that, it will be about power. It's the good idea that wins. And to divorce that from your personal feelings or how you feel that someone has or hasn't come through. So many beautiful ideas have come from dressers. That's collaboration. That one idea. And I think the hard thing about being an artist is that, or a working artist or a serious artist, is the aperture, the size of the holes that you have in your heart, in your writing heart, in your soul, have to be so big so that they can accept comments because you're collaborating with an audience at the end. That's your final scene partner, because theater doesn't exist it's not a literary experience. It's an experience in time and space. And you have to have it so small that you can remain vulnerable to the world and protect. And I guess the control of those things is very hard. So it goes open when you're in front of an audience. When I watch a new piece, I would be where Rosie is watching you watch the piece, which is excruciating and necessary. If you're bored, you will start coughing. If you are not engaged, you will lean back. It's behavior. It's about agreement. Starting at 8:05, you begin a collective, and you watch and witness something happening here. This is exact, or in the round, or in an arena, and you come together. That's the beauty of theater. That's why it will never, ever die. It just won't. As long as there are Starbucks, and you come together over a latte, it's the same thing. We have the need to connect. It's not going away. The way that it manifests itself might change, but the primal need to connect will never change. So I just got lost. Collaboration. That has to be studied and practiced. And it really does, because there's an elegance to it. You can have a really great time if there is
almost a decision that you're going to be a great collaborator. And it's not about power, it's about structure. I know, like the government, that the director, that he or she has the final word. That's just it. It's just the giving up and the letting go to know that's the final word. And then the writers are right underneath, so that's our triangle. It's not flat, it's shaped like that. It has a point to it, so that person can help guide us when you need a third person to say, as Sam Gold said, I really think that song should go. And he was expecting not a fight, but a real debate, because that's what we do, we debate. And I said, great, I trust you. And he was like, really? And I said, I've been writing this for 7 years. I trust you. If your impulse that has been nagging at you means that, that doesn't spill, then let's go with it. Why would I fight you on that? Let's try it. And that, I think, was the honing and the maturity, and I put that in quotation marks, of saying, why would I not go with you? I trust you implicitly. But it's also the power of debate. And I feel like a lot of people, myself, I have to understand the power of debate. I'm going to state my case and try to persuade you, Michelle, of what I think. And you're going to either go with me or not go with me, depending not because of power, but because of the exchange of ideas. Saying, this is what I think, I have to be able to verbalize it. If I don't and I just stew on it, and then I'm mad that you don't get it, well, you don't read my mind. So you have to be able to name it. And that's not using and spitting out, as I was saying, nomenclature, which I think a lot of people in music do. Well, that's a trident, mortified fifth, going to the seventh, raised to the, and I think, oh, fuck off. It's like these are just chords. That's a beautiful harmonic passage, that chord, the Neapolitan chord. But if I were to say what it's called, you might think, oh, I'm less than. But if I just ask you what it feels like, we would connect on it. So it's the idea that there is a fluidity. There's a beautiful book called My Stroke of Insight. I don't know if you've read it, but she speaks of that. She was a neuroanatomist, I think, right? Neuroanatomist. She had a stroke and lost a hemisphere of the brain, the part that has language. But the way that she writes about it is so extraordinary, because she said it took her 7 months to get back, and people would come into the room, and even though she didn't have language, she felt the life force, and she would accept them or reject them based on the life force. And I thought, that's that thing beyond language. She said that she didn't even, there wasn't a silhouette. There was just source of energy. And music is a greatest, it's the physics and the sound waves. It's a beautiful way of trying to harness that kind of energy that, again, is absolutely the connection and expression of life. Another question? Yeah.
Thank you. Hi, I have a few questions. The first one is, how did you write your first piece? And the second one is, you mentioned that you're writing in a lot of different genres, so opera, musical, and a musical movie. How do you work within the traditional forms of those genres, and how do you kind of maybe try to do something different with them? And the third one, sorry, that's it.
My brain has gotten a little spongy.
I'll
okay,
stop
so
there. Yeah.
No, you can write that. So the first question is about
how did you write your first piece?
Oh, well, when I was really little, I used to write, and then my sisters would be outside the door, and I would come out and they would make fun of me. So that was the trauma of writing. And then that thing we put in Fun Home, the commercial, because it's exactly what we did. And my sisters and I used to write commercials, and we wrote this whole thing for the California Raisins. Anybody remember those? Oh my God, I'm so freaking old. And that was this whole thing where the California Raisins would go down this line. And we thought, oh my God, we're going to write a new thing. And then it turns out when I saw Chitty Chitty Bang Bang years ago, I thought, oh my God, we were plagiarizing. Our whole score for the Raisins was this thing. That whole thing. And I thought, oh, I get truly scrumptious. That we do. Anyway, so that was the first one. I wrote something based on Brecht Galileo that was really, I don't count that as the first one because it was all Sondheim. I was just absolutely in that phase that I just was working through. And that's when I went on a panel and I was playing this stuff and this man, oh my God, he was so mean. And what you do is, the ASCAP panel, which is now really great, I played this, and I'm sure it sounded like this. I mean, it was just so, I don't know. And I thought, oh, it's so original. And like, really not. And I played those things. It was a record producer and 2 other people, I forget. And he said, you know what? Stephen Sondheim has just ruined you. Just ruined you. And he went on, and it was in front of around like 300 people. And I felt my face getting really, the marinaras coming out, and he was super shamey. And I was really young, and it was one of those moments. Oh my God, I'm turning into Yentl. It was one of those moments. But it was definitive. And after he's done, and I was so embarrassed, and you feel the tears coming. And I said, I'm going to leave here, and I don't ever want to write again. And I think your job is actually to provide construct, which is to give me something that will help me write in a more authentic way. And what you've done is destructive. That's what you've done. And you know what I would like? Better criticism. Because this is now right there with one of the worst days of my life. And I didn't write for a long time. It really took me a long time to come back to, even though the words were so powerful, I had to catch up to it. But it really taught me a fear of panels. So if I'm ever on one, I always say to people, I'm like the Morton girl. I'm bringing a big container of salt. And everything I say to you that is qualitative is based on my experience. And you must take it that way. I invite you to reject everything I say, because you have to. If I say it's out of tune, that is about quantity, or if something is flat, that's about math. But whether I think it's good or successful or not is subjective. So that was the first one. What's your second question?
How do you write in different genres and work with the forms of those genres?
I love that quote that I think it was George Kaufman, who said, don't try to make something different, try to make something good, that will be different enough. And I live by that. I absolutely live by that. And I think, we weren't going out to bust song form. I never have been out to bust song form. It's not what I want. I love song form. If you try to write, again, Steve Sondheim describes it beautifully, try to write a 32-bar song. Try to write something as beautiful as Blue Skies. Beautiful. They're really, really hard to do. That form, write it beautifully, and then I feel like you can go on. And going inside the traditions, which I've studied endlessly since I was 19, studied and studied and studied them, the idea to me now is how to, in a Michelangelo kind of way, that beautiful quote of releasing the marble. The piece is inside there. Your job is to find out what belongs and what doesn't belong in a piece and release it. That is the job, not to put all of this stuff. You use whatever you have, and your job is to make that, is to free it. So the question is, what does this piece need? Does it need that song? What's the content? Is content dictating form? Is form dictating content? Where does song form work? What's the tradition of this? What is it like? Who should I work with? What should the band be like? What should the orchestra be like? That's the hard thing about musicals, are there a series of unbelievable choices. Decisions, decisions, decisions. But the core, the big why, is why am I writing it? What is it about me that I see in this piece that I should spend 5 to 7 years of my life, unless you're faster, which I'm not, and spend so much time with this piece? What will I get to reveal about myself and it? And what's the third question?
Oh, thank you for letting me go on. To what extent, I was brought up as a classical musician as well, but I'm starting to doubt to what extent we're culturally conditioned to recognize a major chord as a happy one and a minor chord as a sad one and all that. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
So what is what are you grappling with?
I feel like we're mostly culturally conditioned to enjoy like a major ending or like a tonic ending, or find that a minor chord is sad.
Yeah, it's tricky, right? I remember seeing, do you guys remember Hoop Dreams, the documentary? Remember that? Do you remember the end of it? I was at this really sweet little, I think I was in Sag Harbor back before it got so fabulous, and that thing ended, and there was going to be a revolt. And there were very happy, chill people in there. And I thought there was going to be, we were all dressed in fiberware and hemp, and I thought, oh my God, it's like we're going to light the thing on fire. We've been so conditioned that those young men were supposed to win that game. And I felt like that's not how it's supposed to work. Why would you bring that forward, that story? But it just doesn't always end in that narrative, right? But I've been absolutely conditioned that if someone's going to make a film, there's a moral imperative of hope at the end. That's an obvious idea of hope, is that they win the game. But if I were able to look in a subtle way at what it created, it isn't about the last buzzer. It isn't about Rocky screaming at the end that it's a tie, but he still wins that. But that's what we need, right, as a primal group. Part of that is the math of it. Part of that is the overtone series, that literally that interval is all the way up here. It's so far from that. But that said, if you're grappling with that, the modality is a really interesting one, which means that's your central question. In a long-form dramatic work, often, there's a central question. And it turned out in Fun Home, it was a very simple question, which we searched for years. And I thought, is it about this? Is it about this? Her question is about that, and it turned out to be something very simple. In a very complex, as George Wolfe would say, the greater the ambition, the simpler the spine. And it was absolutely true. And her central question was, am I going to end up like my father now that I'm the same age? And when I talked to many women and men whose parents had committed suicide, that age was always right there in their back. Will I make it past my parents? Will I be able to go over the river Styx over there? And so it became her search to find out, how am I like you and how am I not like you? The modality of this, which is why I started with this, a major chord, a minor chord. The first motif. Now, I didn't know I was doing that. I wasn't like, I'm going to do modality, a major chord and a minor chord. And in fact, Lisa was like, I like that music, put it in the front. And I thought, yes, we're done. And the way that we had to go all the way through. But the answer to her question is, I am not at all like my father. I'm completely like my father. And that is the state of being a parent and a child. I'm completely like my mother. I'm not, my mom's in there. I am not, I mean, like she's in Long Island, but watching, I think. I'm nothing like my mother. I'm both. I'm neither. There is that place where the minor and the major coexist inside the same space. So maybe that is what you want to experiment with. Because I just don't ever believe there's going to be a time where this has the same response as this. It just is physics. But that doesn't mean that you can't grapple with that and try to change how we view this. Question? Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. Hi. We are actually from Berklee College of Music, and we are all majoring in film scoring.
Yes!
And I was just wondering, because we've been in an environment where it's so saturated with music, at least for me, I don't know about the rest of them, but I've been experiencing like a mental block in terms of writing. And like, I guess after like 4 years, because we're about to graduate, I've just kind of like lost that passion. And I mean, like, it's not gone completely, obviously, because I'm still doing music. But I was just wondering how you've dealt with like mental blocks, and if you've been like experienced that like kind of like loss of passion for music, especially because you've been doing it for so long.
I really feel for you, and we should talk afterwards and maybe go out and have a beer. It would be my pleasure. Because that is, again, I think, have you lost your passion for life? Then it's definitely in there. I think that we can fill our brains with certain things in school. It happened here because that's the way it has to happen, I think. And then you integrate it inside the mystery. You need the craft. And I sense, and I might be really wrong because we don't know each other, that you've gotten so much overload of craft and craft and craft, right? And that thing behind it, and it's like those slinky dogs, the butt will catch up to the rest. The head goes, thump, and you're thinking, oh my God, doing this, and when that cue, and I have to do a spotting session, and that, and what the orchestra is, and the reason for it, the this, right? It will go flinging up. So let's talk afterwards because I have a lot of thoughts. I think music is not divorced from life, and I mean books and watching your friends and how they behave, your relationships, going to theater, reading all of the Greek plays, all of Shakespeare, seeing everything that you can, making sure again that it doesn't stay so focused because film is nothing unto itself. It's reflecting the way that we live and trying to reveal something about the way we live or not living. That's your job, right? But you've been concentrated and you're in battle fatigue from that. The one time I did have it, I haven't had it since then just because I was mentored by someone who was, I think, incredibly tough on me and just said, like, I don't want to hear that at all. Go see something or go do something for someone. Go teach someone how to read. Shut the fuck up. So it was really hard for me because when I was doing, and he would just say, there's not enough time. There's not enough time for that. Work through it. Find your process to work yourself out of the hole. As Alison Bechdel, she always says, I have to be strong enough to pull myself out of a pit. And I thought that was literal, and it is for her because she's a strong girl. But I think she also means artistically to pull herself out. But when I played music and piano from 3 classically till 14. And I was a very, very strange kid, as you can well imagine. And I had amblyopia and my eye turned in. What was better about it, though, was the eye patch. Oh, yes. And the pink, sparkly, my choice, cat eye glasses. I was very, very popular in the playground. So I had to get really, really tough, because there I was like, and I thought, I'm a fierce pirate. And everyone was like, you're a freak. And I thought, oh, it's a fine line from freak to fierce pirate. That's what I learned. And I got very, very tough because I did look, and I had a hairline that happened to go with my eyebrow. So there was, can you picture it? Like, right, there was no definition. I was like, oh my God. So I loved playing piano, but I wasn't, I wouldn't sit down and play for 5 or 6 hours. That was not the relationship to the instrument. I had a relationship that was really different. And then I got a serious teacher when I was 12, and I was suddenly playing concerti and all these crazy, beautiful works that I had no relationship to. And not one person, and not because they were mean, they just didn't know, sat me down and said, what do you think of this? Do you like it? Do you understand anything about this Kavalevsky or Bartok? Do you know why they wrote? Do you know who they were? Not one person. So I became just a little machine. Sakun, sakun, like a little mimeograph. Oh my God, I'm old. Mimeograph, boom, cocoon, cocoon, just spitting this shit out. And then I remember my fingers going like this, and I think, I don't know what I'm playing. So then I got to another serious composer, and I was in the middle of playing a duet of Malaguena. And I thought, I don't know what I'm doing. I hate this. And I pulled my hands off the keyboard, and I had been promised the last slot in the recital. And she turned to me and she said, I think we have a problem here. And I said, we sure do. First of all, you wear a lot of hairspray, and I can't breathe. That's one. But I don't understand. I don't know what I'm doing. And I lost my spot in the recital because I spoke up. She pulled it from me. And I thought, oh, you're punished if you say what it is. I didn't have the way to do it. I hadn't been taught. But if I had had a program that had said, that thing that you're talking about is a response, it's interesting. Let's find out a way that it can be a debate or a dialogue as opposed to a rebellion, which you have to do. So I rebelled by not playing the piano for 4 straight years. I really showed them. And it wasn't until I stepped on this campus. I came here, moved to the city at 17, and I started understanding my own way in And I had to catch up. I still feel at 54 I'm catching up for what I missed. Those years of theory and harmony, those unbelievable, that window. And yet I came back in a very different way. So let's talk. Yes.
When you said you switched from biology to music, was that hard for you? Did anyone ever say to you, no, you shouldn't do that, it'll be too hard to pursue music? Because currently, I'm trying to decide between doing arts or STEM, and a lot of people say to me, you should never go for the arts, it'll be too hard, you won't succeed. Was that something that you struggled with at all?
I don't think there's anybody who would say, honestly, you should go for the arts. Don't be a lawyer. But, and I'd say it only because it is, it's a harder, less, this is what I would say, the path is less defined. You're going to have to bring out your machete and bedazzle the shit out of it and go swath your own path. That is hard. Yes. Is it worth it? Completely and utterly. And I've met so many doctors who are great composers and great players. I had to leave one because we kept talking about Ravel. And I was like, my carotid artery is spurting and we're talking about Ravel. I literally had to change doctors because we couldn't get past talking about music. I think the question is to be really clear about the map. I think it's also a thing that we don't do. I didn't do it. Just to say, how can you make a living while you're trying to make your art? What's going to be, the depletion factor for women is huge. 92% of us do all the work at home, no matter what. Even we're with super great men and they're evolved and making whole grain macaroni for our kids, the whole thing, right? It's still 92%. So we get depleted. So the depletion factor is going to be really good. If you dream about or spend some mindful meditation on what is my dream look like, specifically, even if it changes, as opposed to blindly going into the arts. Where do I think my full expression is? What would it look like? How would I get there? How would I make a living? Where would I live while I did that? That's one way to go. And the other way is like me, you just go. And then you own it. What Morieston beautifully calls the exclusivity of failure, which is a phrase I love, is when he was writing a show, and there were all these people buzzing in his ear, you should, and he said, you know what, I'm going to do it this way, and if it succeeds or if it fails, I own it. That's what I do. I hear all of you, and some of them are really good ideas that I take, but ultimately, the path really does belong. However, understanding what that path might look like as opposed to just jumping off the cliff. How are you going to, what I tell my students, self-assignment is a big thing. You don't stop learning when you get out of school. There's just no one looking over you to say, have you analyzed all the Mozart concerti? Have you watched that? Have you gone to the Met and gone to the student thing where you can turn on the score and sat there for 13 until you can speak about it? The extension courses, all that stuff. What's your course of study going to be? How's it going to look? So I think it's taking some of the scary things out, right, and making it more concrete because the abstract is going to always be there. I think we have time for a couple more. Yeah.
Do you find that projects tend to start from like a motif or something that you? Thank you. That you hear or dream up or stumble upon that inspires you, or like a story that you encounter that inspires you, and then I guess how is the process affected by that? Like music that you want to work out and resolve versus a story that you're compelled to share.
An angel just got its wings. Say it one more time.
Do you start from the how is the process different starting from the music versus starting from like a story that really speaks to you?
For me, it's always story. I'm a real student of storytelling. And I've written atmospheric theater, but it's not for me. I love adventuresome storytellers, Robert Wilson. I think I love all of John Cage, Milton Babbitt, Stephen Sondheim. There's so many contemporary playwrights who I love. For me, it's the constant, the storytelling and people who I feel, the word marginalized has been thrown around a lot. But for me, it's like the margin of the paper, the people whose lives don't often find themselves at the center as the protagonist. An African-American maid in 1963, a butch woman, not just a lesbian woman, but a butch woman in the center as the protagonist. I think that idea and the sonic landscape that would, I love what Zora Neale Hurston did when she went here. And Linda Twine did that as well. She went and collected, like Alan Lomax, how are we the same musically all over the world? Well, the keening and the lullabies were very much the same. All of Alan Lomax's archives are in the library in Washington, D.C., and they're incredible. The ones from Haiti are amazing. And then you hear something, you think, I know that. The way that what happens with the field holler, I was really interested in that in Carolina Change. The way that the communication got stopped or thwarted. And when George and I were talking about that with Tony and talking about the sounds, we talked about the way that machines had only replaced what hands had done before. This country is built on the backs of so many people who are invisible and who haven't brought forward as if they don't deserve to be center stage in the musical. And I wanted to look at that, the way that kind of sounds and how it could work as almost like a cantus firmus, which just means the song on the ground. And so with that, the decision to write a story and my relationship with Tony, and it based semi-autobiographical, and I found myself inside that because my house was a very complicated house to grow up in, filled with beautiful music, from the piano, from the flute, from my little sister playing ballet, and it was an absolute, the counterpoint of other things at work with this music. And a lot of that music, when you work with a musician, you hear all the time the repetition. Around and around. It's not pretty. The practicing is not pretty. And my mom, one of the reasons that she finally said you have to take lessons is because I was playing this. Again, like 70 times over, because the only song is she's like, will you play something else? And so that kind of behavior of how a classical musician, the clarinet, would figure in, I thought that guy's silent, but he plays through his clarinet. So I'm going to use the Mozart concerto and make something. And the washing and the dryer, Tony has made them scene partners for Caroline to make a dramatic center for what's happening to her. And then the things that are getting piped in, that's the radio. So that's the sound that she's hearing but can't have. And then at the end when she sings her aria and everybody thinks she's killed herself, it's because she's submerged herself. She's made a decision that ultimately that aria is a series of careful decisions to just say, I will go under and my child is going to go forward. And I'm going to keep doing this thing and keep getting this pay and she is going to go forward. And then we saw it with the Obama campaign committee in Chicago. And I turned to Tony and I thought, you always know. There's something so prescient about Tony Kushner. He always knows. He always knows this thing. It was the absolute highlight, and I thought that was way before. We started writing that way, way before 1906, I think. And he knew. It was like we were working towards that moment where we would gather in the dark and watch this other thing that had been made visible. I think we have that's it, right?
That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, please thank Jeanine Tesori. That was wonderful. Thank you so much.
So fun. Thank you.